The Amazon rainforest is a beautiful biodiversity hotspot located in South America. However, it is being rapidly destroyed by deforestation, which is at its highest since 2006 and has increased 22% from 2020, showing no signs of slowing down. Forest fires, both a method and a result of deforestation, are also occurring at an increasing rate, with the number in 2020 exceeding that of 2019. The primary reasons for this destruction are lumber export, beef production, soybean production, and development. These recent spikes are in large part due to Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who has relaxed enforcement laws and made extensive budget cuts. This is a huge One Health issue as it affects people, animals, and the environment on a local and global scale. Over the past 50 years, 17% of the rainforest has been lost to deforestation, with 14% converted to agricultural land. This loss is predicted to reach 40% by 2050. The current annual loss is around 11,000 square kilometers per year. To put this in perspective, this is equivalent to the loss of 2,055,608 American football fields each year. Naturally, the Amazon should sink around 28% of atmospheric carbon. However, due to deforestation, there are many less trees to absorb the carbon and more burning and decomposition to release it. Consequently, the Amazon rainforest is now a carbon source instead of a carbon sink. 3 times more carbon dioxide is produced by forest fires than the forest can absorb, and in areas where deforestation is over 30%, carbon emissions are 10 times higher. This is even negative in the long term, as a burned area can remain a carbon source for up to 30 years due to tree mortality and decomposition. The Amazon rainforest is also a huge contributor to the global water cycle and has a local one of its own. Every day, it releases 20 billion tons of moisture into the atmosphere, producing its own rain. Water cycles 5 to 6 times through the forest until it reaches the ocean. Once the rainforest falls under 80% of its original size, it will no longer be successful carrying out the cycle. We are at a critical point where there's only 81% of the original size of the forest left. The forest also holds 20% of Earth's available fresh water and regulates global weather and climate patterns. If we continue past the critical point and the hydrologic cycle is interrupted by deforestation, the Amazon will turn into grasslands and deserts. The severe reduction in precipitation and resultant droughts will be also evident in other areas around the world. Since the late 1800s, the Amazon has warmed by over 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is higher than the global average of about a 1 degree Celsius increase. The canopy protects the rainforest below the trees and the organisms not suited to a dry, hot climate. As trees are removed, more sunlight penetrates the forest floor, drying out and heating up the soil. Most of the nutrients are found in the plants, trees, and animals of the rainforest. The soil itself has little nutrients. Trees hold the topsoil in place and drop decaying matter to provide nutrients to fertilize the soil and feed the organisms below. Without trees, there is more soil erosion, lack of nutrients, and an unsuitable living environment for the Amazon species. The plants also provide medicinal purposes to the local cities, sometimes accounting for up to 45% of medicines available, and to Western medicine, forming the basis for 25% of Western drugs. The Amazon rainforest is home to nearly 1,300 different bird species, roughly 430 mammal species, 430 different amphibian species, 380 reptilian species, and approximately 2.5 million insect species. Over the past 30 years, deforestation has led to the extinction of 10 mammals, 20 birds, and 8 amphibian species. Another 20% of rainforest species suffer from shrinking habitats. Wildfires associated with deforestation have further threatened these species, affecting 95% of all Amazon species, and in particular, affecting 85% of endangered species. Jaguars are one of the species suffering from habitat loss. If the dense tree canopy these animals depend on continue to shrink and further limit their range, jaguar populations will become increasingly isolated and lose genetic diversity, further threatening the species' existence. Bird migratory patterns have begun to change. Songbirds, hummingbirds, warblers, along with other North American birds who historically have migrated to the rainforests also suffer, as many are unable to survive when they return in the winter to find their habitats destroyed. The dilution effect suggests some organisms are more vulnerable to infection than others, but greater biodiversity protects them and lowers the chance of becoming infected and continuing transmission. Losses in biodiversity due to deforestation challenge this effect and increase the risk of infectious disease. Clearance of the rainforest also benefits certain disease vectors such as mosquitoes. Researchers have found that the Amazon's main malaria vector, Anopheles darling, has rapidly growing populations along newly deforested areas, along with higher rates of hantavirus, yellow fever, and Zika in neighboring communities. Deforestation and urbanization have changed ecosystems and led to growing concerns about disease spillover, particularly dengue fever, yellow fever, Zika, hantavirus, leptospirosis, malaria, and more. Deforestation cuts back on tree cover over fish habitat and deposits nutrients into the rivers, leading to increased algae growth, and increased competition for oxygen between algae and fish, thus curtailing the availability of food. There are also profound effects on water quality, as deforestation leads to increased rates of erosion and causes water sources to have a higher sediment load and higher turbidity. These changes are particularly alarming for indigenous populations directly reliant on the rivers, as well as rural villages away from the large city centers. There is also a cause of worry in terms of food insecurity. A 2020 study shows that farms in Brazil have a 5 to 10% decrease in corn yield compared to before intensive land clearing. Additionally, further encroachment into animal habitats has led to increased frequencies of wild animals destroying crops. As of June 2021, 70% of deforestation can be attributed to cattle ranching and the beef industry, which constitutes a $5.4 billion industry in Brazil. Some experts argue that the best way to defend the forest against deforestation is by advocating for indigenous land rights. The Society for Conservation Biology has found that land protected by indigenous land rights experience deforestation at rates 20 times lower than unprotected land, largely due to increased regulations. Indigenous land is under persistent threat from the Brazilian government via operations such as mining, logging, and agriculture. However, under President Bolsonaro, Brazil's policy towards these industries have little regard for the planetary health due to subsidies for cattle farming expansion and pro-business policy that allows for little regulation around logging and mining. Addressing and solving the urgent deforestation issue in the Amazon rainforest is essential to minimizing the impacts of climate change. The best interventions will be those that are culturally informed and are sustainable from all angles of human, environmental, and animal health.